This video is going to cover the email blast creation process. The first thing you want to do after you log in to your headquarters is to click on the email blast tab, and that will take you to the email blast dashboard that we're looking at now. What we're going to do is we're going to cover the creation of a brand new blast from scratch process. For those of you that like to send from a previous blast, we have right on your dashboard this little send from previous blast widget, which will list out your previous blasts. And you can select a blast, click recycle blast, and it'll walk you through the same process that I'm going to cover right now for creating a blast from scratch. So onward and upward. To create a blast from scratch, we click on the create a blast submenu and then click create blasts. As you can see, we've reduced the number of steps in Salsa for creating a blast from about 600 to 3. Very simple. Step 1 is creating a blast. Step 2 is choose who it's going to. Step 3 is preview and send. So the first thing you'll notice on step 1 is templates. We now have graphical thumbnails representation of what your templates look like, so this should be an easier reference point, and it's kind of fun. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and select an email template for this blast, and I can see that it loaded down here into my HTML editor, which we'll get to in a second. But first things first, we're going to enter in a reference name. A reference name is just an internal name for you to find the blast later on. This does not go out to the public. This is strictly internal. You can see my from email name, from email address, and reply to email have already been pre-populated. I set this up in my configuration settings, which we'll cover in another tutorial. So now I'm going to go into my subject line, and you can see if I hold my mouse over an input field for a bit, a little help box will come up, this yellow background, which says the text that will appear in your subject line of your blast. We have some tooltips like this hidden throughout the site, and we're working on expanding this so you get little hints when using the system. So here is my subject line. I'm just going to type in. And now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty, which is the actual HTML blast itself. You can see we have this very slick and nice looking Microsoft Word type interface. My template's been loaded, and now I'm going to enter in some content. What I always like to do is say hello and then enter someone's first name, and we can do that through the use of merge fields. So through this little drop down, I can select what things I want to automatically pull in, and I'm going to say first name. You can see this inserted bracket bracket first underscore name bracket bracket. This is just a command to our database that says, hey, when you're sending out the email blast to Joe Smith, anytime you see bracket bracket first name, replace that with Joe Smith, or actually in this case replace it with that person's first name, which would be Joe Smith. So hello, first name, how are you? Here is a cool link by Anthony. So that's the text of my email, and I'm going to make this into a cool link by I go ahead and I select it, and then up here I use the little link tool, click on this, get a pop-up, and it comes in and says, okay, what type of link you're going to be? An email link, link to text inside of it, or URL. I'm just going to do a very simple URL, and I'm going to enter in, if I learn how to type correctly, democracyinaction.org. Very cool URL indeed. You can see now the text has turned blue, it's become underlined, and it is a link. So this is my very simple text content. There's the ability for you to insert images, which is great. You can look at the raw source of the HTML, and this, what we're allowing you to do is this editor does not rewrite your HTML, and you get access to the entire HTML document starting from the opening HTML tag to the closing HTML tag for those of you that are interested. I'm going to scroll down the page further, and I get my text content box. And this is what we recommend, is that you send both an HTML and a text email all at once. Our system merges it together, and the recipient, depending on how their email client set up, will either see the HTML, the graphical WYSI one, or just a plain old-fashioned text one. So what we like to do is, what I'm going to do is just copy and paste the content that I wrote in my HTML one and insert that right here into my text content. The merge fields and everything will work just the same. And here, as you notice, it says here's a cool link, but this is no longer linked. So what you'd have to do is inside your text content is to manually enter in that link. Okay, that's my content. I'm going to click Save and Continue. Get to the next step, which is to choose recipients. Now, this is our new Query Builder interface, and we'll cover this in another tutorial in much greater detail. But I'll just walk you through kind of some basic things that are commonly used, such as, you target a group, you say is a member of this group, and now your email blast will go to people in that group. You can choose to skip all of this, send to your entire blast, send to your entire list. You can go ahead and target by percentage, and this is great for A/Bing an email. Say you have two versions of a similar message and you want to see what response rates you get on both. So what we like to suggest people do is say, okay, maybe send version 1 to the first 10% of your list, version 2 to the next 10%, and then kind of watch the returns come in. But in this case, I think what I'm going to do is, just for our testing purposes, I'm just going to send to the first 10% of the list, target that, and I'll click Save and Continue. Now, step 3 is Preview and Send. Right at the top, it will say, this is how many people it's targeting to. And a little note here, it's saying that this discounts bad email addresses and people with no email. So what this means is, for example, if you have a supporter list of 100 people and you click that you want to send to your entire list, and you come to this stage and it says it's only targeting 98 people, what that means is you have 2 supporters on your list that either don't have a valid email address or that don't have an email address at all. So this is why sometimes you will notice a discrepancy between the total supporter list you have and the total people that you can email at once. It's always good to keep track of your valid email addresses on your lists and find out ways to get better ones. So on the rest of this page, we have the subject line you've entered, the HTML preview of what you're going to send, the text preview, and here it says this is who I'm targeting. It says I'm targeting people in the following percentages, 1 through 10. So I can make sure that this is where I want it to go. I have an option here to add to a web page, and this will basically add it to a web page archive, so people who can go online and read your emails without having to check them in their inbox. Some people like to do this. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to send myself I'm going to back up a second, and what I'm going to do is look at scheduled time. So this is great because if you click in here, you get a little calendar, and you can go ahead and schedule in advance any date or time that you want to send your message. So now I've chosen May 23rd, and maybe I'll choose some time in advance, and I'm going to say 4:30 a.m. So if this was a real email, I'd say at, May 23rd at 4:30 in the morning, my email would be set to go. I could write it now, and in a couple months, it would just go ahead and send. But for now, I'm going to send myself a test email, and what you do here is just enter in any email address. And actually, I can enter in a few email addresses here just by separating each of them with a comma. But I'm just going to send to myself right now. And if I click Send Test Email, we take a deep cleansing breath. And we get back a response says, sending to supporter Anthony at democracyinaction.org, email sent. Great. So now I can go check my email box and see if this is the email that I actually like. If it's good, if not, I can come back here and edit it by clicking on any of these tabs at the top. Or if I'm happy with it, I can go to the bottom and click this big orange button that says Send Email Blast Now. And that's how to use the new Email Blaster inside Salsa. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope this was helpful. Bye.